Welcome to Ozzy's Comic Verse. It's me, John.
What?
Yeah, that's my name.
Okay.
It's not actually Ozzy.
I got you.
Speaking of which, you never did ask me, like, what's the question I hate being asked most? Like Ozzy Osbourne, right?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, like ounce.
Yeah. That's why they call me Ounce. We're actually going to kick this off with a brand new title that was picked out by Chris at Top Dog Comics for me, and it is Hell is a Squared Circle. Now, if you're looking at that cover and see a masked wrestler, you are not wrong. This is a book about wrestling, but it is such a fascinating read. Think Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler meets a Telltale Heart. Yeah, so the book kicks off, first and foremost, I love the art style in this book. It's very vibrant, very pop style. I like it. It's written by Chris Condon. Francesco Biagini is the artist behind it, and they do some amazing work. And this book pretty much follows the story of a washed-up wrestler named Ted Walsh, who is pretty much at the end of the rope and just dreams of one last moment of glory. But like a lot of people in, a field that takes a lot out of you, he's found himself, sinking into the bottom of bottles, going to bar after bar, trying to drink and forget. He's got an ex-wife who hates his guts and a daughter that she's keeping from him, and plus he's struggling to make ends meet. So eventually he comes up with an idea to help get his name back on top like it used to be back in the old days. And he approaches his promoter and tries to tell him the idea. His promoter gives him this whole spiel about how, no, don't worry, you'll get your shot soon. And then he goes to talk to the guy he's got a match against, who he's going to heel for. It's like if you wrestle, wrestling terms. I know you do. It's like he's working as a heel now, but he kind of likes being a heel, But he does dream of being a babyface again. Well, he's actually going against the babyface in this other match, and it's Chris Cosmo is the guy's name. But anyway, Ted Walsh, he dresses up. He's Muska. That's his wrestling name. Mm-hmm. It's very like they're masked. He's a masked wrestler, but he's got kind of like a little bit of Rey Mysterio vibe. But if Rey Mysterio was on like Kane's body, like, just big and jacked, but. Yeah, the show, I know it really was. But yeah.
Let me
So anyway, he says it's like it'll be a push and pull match, to make people like root for you. So I'm gonna use your special against you, and it'll be a chance for like the big comeback, and like it'll get everyone excited because they wouldn't see it coming. And Chris Cosmo's like, yeah. And so they go to do the match. They start off sparring. Chris stiffs him. And ends up like winning the match without doing any of the stuff they had talked about prior to the match. Well, this pisses Ted Walsh off because he had a great idea, to help bring himself back.
What's stiffing?
When you don't pull a punch.
So he hit him for real.
Yeah.
Went into business for himself.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, just something you don't do. Needless to say, it pissed off Ted Walsh. He couldn't find Chris Cosmo to talk to him after the match, so he goes back to the bar. He starts drinking again, and there's this running theme that when you drink, you think you can fix anything. And so he goes to talk to his promoter. He calls him up, goes to his house to talk to him, and says, it's like, seriously though, it's like, I'm struggling to make ends meet here. Like, Chris didn't want to work with me. He was like, can you please just like help me out? I'm trying to get the take for tonight. And of course the fighting promoter, he's like, God no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give you my take, you ungrateful son of a piece of shit, and all this, that, and the other. This causes Ted Walsh to go all Benoit on him, and he murders the guy.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he was drunk. He snapped. He didn't mean to. Like, he was at the end of his rope. And just as that happened, the answer machine goes off on his fighting promoter's phone. It's like, yeah, we were in the audience, we watched the fight tonight, and I was like, yeah, like that Muska guy, we want more of him. Like, he works really well. So that was been his big break, but he had snapped.
But he had just murdered the promoter.
Yeah, so he gets the promoter's keys, goes back, opens the guy's safe, starts taking all the money out, about 40,000 tops.
Right.
Well, as he's doing that, door bursts open. There's Chris Cosmo just coming out of the showers. Sees Ted Walsh there. Goes to try and stop him. But Ted Walsh grew up on the streets of Newark, so he doesn't give a shit, you know? Like, he's been fighting his whole life. He beats the absolute shit out of Chris Cosmo in a real fight, leaves him for dead, takes the money, books it to Canada. So he's living in Canada, and this goes from 1979 to 1993. Man, he got himself clean. You know, he's working as a fighter again. This time he's going by the name Tombstone. But your past comes back to haunt you. His daughter's a young adult now. She comes up to see him. Everything's going well, but somebody shows up, a private investigator, asking questions. And this guy happens to fit the description of a guy who went missing some 10 plus years ago. So he gets there, like, the guy starts asking questions. It starts to make him feel a certain way, but he's trying to forget that. He's like, screw that. I got my life on track. I got my daughter here. People are chanting my name again. Tombstone, Tombstone. And then, like, he gets a call for a job. It's like, yeah, you got a fight tonight. It's against a new guy who's on the circuit. Thing is that you only be able to meet him on the ring. So it's like, all right, if you're saying he's good, I'll work with him. Anyway, he gets to the fight. He meets the guy in the ring, and for a moment there, it's like a ghost stepped on his grave. And he's looking at this guy wearing this death mask in the ring, and it's fucking cool. Like, I'm going to show you because, like, it's a really awesome visual that they do for it. But yeah, like, he sees this guy here in this death mask.
Oh, that's some badass colors.
Cool. That is...
Yeah.
That's some cool looking art.
And it makes him fucking stop in his tracks. It's like... he's got a whole bad feeling about this. Hops in the ring with the guy, and it's like he was supposed to go over this match. Tombstone is supposed to go over. This guy is called the Executioner. Mm-hmm. So he goes against him. Guy stiffs him. Beats him. He loses the match. Guy dips out. Pisses Ted Walsh off. He's like, what the fuck happened? Anyway, it's like, where is that guy? I want to talk to him. It's like, in the process of, like, him freaking out, you know, he accidentally strikes his daughter. It's a whole bad thing. The story goes on so that the private investigator shows up, finds the guy at the bar, says, hey, Ted, like, are you going to answer some questions for me? Guy doesn't bat an eye. He's like, yeah, you also didn't bat an eye when I called you Ted. So he knew who he was, had him made. Needless to say, all Ted Walsh can think about is finding this guy and getting his comeuppance. Finally tracks the guy down. He's wrestling with a different circuit in Canada. Goes there, fights him, and in the process starts losing the match again. That's when the guy unmasks himself, and you see that it's actually Chris Cosmo, but his face is absolutely devastated. Like, it's a real horror show. Like, think like Voorhees level of messed up. Like, it's...
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that from the fight they got in?
Where he left him for dead.
Wow.
Needless to say, like, the guy, Ted Walsh, while all this stuff is going on and the cops are coming to arrest him because they know that it was him that killed the guy, he's thinking of something that a guy once said to him. And it's also very poignant because it's the name of the book. And it's like, they say there's 9 circles of hell, brother. He'd bellow out, but that ain't all the truth. Because you're at the 9th circle, and waiting for you, there ain't Satan, but me. Welcome to my hell, brother, he'd scream, that wagging tongue of his. The squared circle of hell. It was a good line, maybe too good. And that is, hell is a squared circle. I can't highly recommend this book enough. I think this will be one of my top 5 of the year. Wow. It is that good. Like, definitely, give it a read.
Wow. Sounds amazing. Like,
it's a great book. That brings us into our second book this evening, which is Flawed, which is a relatively new book. I've seen promos for it in other Image books. But yes, this is an Image number 1. And we are taking place in some city called Setham. It's a made-up comic book city. Cool. Art style, it's interesting. It's unique. It's going to take a little bit for it to grow on me, but the story is interesting enough. And essentially what you have here is a psychiatrist by day, vigilante crime fighter of justice by night. And her name is Dr. Jim Ez is her name. So I'm guessing we might find out her middle name is N at some point. There's a Detective Davis, and for a start-out book, it's kind of interesting. The story is simplistic, but it does kind of try and hook you. I would say give it like another issue or so. That's probably what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna let you know. But it's okay. It needs a little bit more to it. The art style is very jarring though. I don't know if I could give this a solid recommend right now because it just didn't immediately grab me. Like the art's kind of bubbly, it's a little all over the place, and sadly I think flawed goes for what's in the book too. So can't really recommend that one. However, I definitely can recommend Spider-Man. We are on issue 10 here, and this book pissed me off a little bit, but it's okay. It pissed me off in a good way. It was a really great moment of closure. Now, currently what's going on in comics is this event called Axe, which is Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals. It's a current big crossover book that's going on right now. I'm not reading it. Don't need to. But this book starts off with that. So this is kind of a tie-in to the whole Judgment event that's going on. Needless to say, Celestial, if you saw the Eternals movie, if you didn't, I don't blame you. Celestial showed up, said, you got 24 hours to live. I'm going to judge you, and if I find you lacking, then everyone's done. All right, cool. So, meanwhile, like, Spider-Man is putting in a call to Tony Stark because he's actually there on the front lines doing this. He's like, so, yeah, this thing about the Celestial, if strange people start showing up and talking to me that shouldn't be here, it's probably the Celestial, right? And Tony's like, yeah, probably. Good. And that's when it pans out and you see that Spider-Man is talking to Gwen Stacy. Of course, it's not Gwen Stacy, because it couldn't be. Gwen Stacy's dead. She's been dead for 40 years. Sick fuck. No, but no, she's been dead for 40 years, and it's not a spoiler at this point. It's 40 years old spoiled. You're fine. Okay. I remember people bitching about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie. Oh, she died. It's like, that's not a spoiler. So I'm sorry you didn't read the book. That's your fault. But it's like, you knew she was going to die. The moment you saw her, you knew she was going to die. Needless to say,
I didn't know. I didn't think they were going to do it, though.
Needless to say, it's not actually Gwen Stacy. It is a projection of the Celestial, and this one is standing in judgment of Spider-Man, Peter Parker. So pretty much you get to live a day in the life of Spider-Man, but it's while everyone is trying to be super nice to each other and kiss everyone's ass. It's really great. You have a great back and forth between Peter and J. Jonah Jameson, and Jada apologizing for the Scorpion, the Spider Slayer, all that shit. It's like, yeah, and then Peter like lets him off the hook. It's like, look, you, even when you did bad things, like, you always had the best of intentions behind it. It's like, dude, all is forgiven. And that actually puts Jonah at ease, and then it gets to a point where it's like he goes to talk to his Aunt May and like just says, I really hope that you aren't too disappointed in me. I'm trying to be there more for you. And Aunt May is like, no, it's okay. And then you can't see what Aunt May sees, but standing behind her is Uncle Ben. So we all know Aunt May is pure of heart. She's fine. So Aunt May is cool. Anyway, it gets to a point where Spider-Man says, is like, well, I guess I'm about to do my thing, but I guess I really should talk to you. I know that you're not really Gwen Stacy, that you're the thoughts that I keep in my head of her. And it's because what happened to her forced me to become the better person that I am, that I couldn't be too reckless with my powers. And also because I still love her. And that's when Celestial's like, okay, I found you worthy. You're good. Here's a gift. And that's when, for a few moments, Gwen Stacy comes back to life and gives Peter that closure. It took 40 years to get there, but it happened. Meanwhile, you see Norman Osborn, who saw Gwen Stacy with Peter Parker, and you see Norman snap for a second to Green Goblin, and following him is Gwen Stacy, who is furious with him. So yeah, that's how that book ends. Spider-Man, it's getting good. Like, there's a few hiccups there. 900 has nothing to do with anything that's going on here, and I think there was another book that was like, okay, you could not read that one, but so far it's been a solid run. I'm curious to see what the dark web brings in December. And that is it for the comic verse.